Positive performance management planning and compensation performance drivers benefit business on multiple levels, according to Brad Kelly, Director of Toronto-based Global Governance Advisors. Brad sat down with Canadian HR Reporter TV to discuss how organizations can drive results from compensation dollars. What does effective executive compensation look like?
Once you get to the executive level, there has to be a certain level of rigor and formality around it. That's what your stakeholders, your shareholders are going to be expecting. They want to be able to see it. The people who are participating in a plan need to truly understand what it is they're expected to do and what rewards are associated with that. If you can basically have a plan in place that clearly articulates and outlines what these expectations and rewards are, then the executives know exactly what they need to do, and at the end of the day they know exactly what or how they'll be rewarded. So again, in terms of the generational issue, it's really about the formality of the senior levels and how these spot awards. You could never see yourself saying, you know, great job, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO. Here's a movie pass for you and your wife. It doesn't work that way. But a formal plan that can be clearly articulated to the shareholders, the stakeholders, that they can understand the objectives around it, what the expected outcomes are. That is something that holds weight in an organization.
How often should executive compensation policies be reviewed?
The more diligent organizations do it on an annual basis. So basically they're looking at their peers, what's happening in their sector, have their peers changed, because of course there's a certain level of churn in the economy where there are certain mergers, acquisitions, companies that are normally a competitor may no longer be in existence. So they constantly are looking at taking the pulse of their peers, of their sector, of their region, to make sure that they're completely aligned with the market expectations so that there isn't an issue in terms of a misalignment where if they're underpaying, they could be losing some senior talent. If they're overpaying, they could find themselves in hot water in terms of their stakeholders, shareholders, the media taking issue with it. And so the more diligent companies will do it on an annual basis. We have one client that does it twice a year. They're so serious about it.
What are some new trends that organizations should be aware of?
The increased expectation in terms of the external pressures. These are real pressures that will have significant effects on the overall shareholder value, the trust and reliability that their organization is portraying. So this is what investors are looking at, this is what stakeholders are looking at. And so that is something that they need to be aware of, the fact that these are real threats or real stresses out there. In terms of the not-for-profits, public sector organizations, you have certain academics out there that are saying that the establishment of at-risk pay packages are not effective. My argument is that they just haven't been effectively implemented. They haven't been focused on the right things, trying to incent, as I said earlier, the right behaviors of their organization.
So how can organizations evaluate their compensation plans?
By actually going through the plans and actually looking at, you know, what are the expected outcomes, or what are some of the unexpected outcomes that could come from this. A nice example that we tend to use is a mortgage broker. A mortgage broker could be incented to basically provide mortgages to individuals who may not be as solvent as they should be. So they may be a more risky venture for the organization that they work for. But by virtue of the fact that if they were to get more mortgages out the door, they would get a better bonus, they now are personally incented to turn a blind eye to some of the negatives around that client and try and do their best to get that actual mortgage completed. Does it increase the risk profile of the organization? Yes. Does it do it intentionally? No. But these are some of the things that once you start to delve deeper into the objectives and potential outcomes, some organizations are shocked to realize that they could be incenting the wrong behaviors.